One.
Okay, we'd like to welcome everybody to the September meeting of the Templeton Community Preservation Committee. We will just jump right in with the agenda. First item on the agenda is the meeting minutes from August 14th, which were sent out well in advance, and there's a copy in front of you. I have read them and they look accurate to me. Would anybody like to move anything forward?
Motion that we accept the minutes as presented.
Second it.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion, questions or comments?
There it is.
Well, no, I mean, I always give everybody a chance to chime in with it. Just one more time. Hearing none, we'll go right to a vote. All those in favor, since we're all here, we can do it in person, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, unanimously approved. Next item is the admin update.
The CP3 report, which was due 9:15, has been submitted today by our chair. Thank you for doing that, Mr. Henshaw. The fall town meeting warrant opened on August 27th and it will close on September 24th. Hence your applications will be reviewed tonight. Fall town meeting is scheduled for November 12th. If anybody wants to write that down.
And is that 6 p.m.?
Don't know the time.
We'll check. We got time.
Ken McClure was appointed to the Park and Rec seat for CPC that was formerly held by Candace. And Mike Dixon was reappointed to the historical seat. And they both have sworn in with the clerk's office. My last update is that I received word from Brian Tangway that the Grange Hall lift project has been completed. So either now or at your next topic on CPC finances, you are welcome to close that project account and return the funds to the designated.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. We'll just go right into the finances and current projects session, and then we'll move into the potential projects to discuss for the special. Unless anybody's in a hurry, we're not going to be too lengthy on this. So the project details, as everybody knows on this committee, the transition to the new accountant is moving forward, and the rolling over of the books and all that stuff that happens with the fiscal year is in process. And Jessica has worked her fingernails off getting us these updated reports, working with the new accountant. And the numbers that we have in terms of the available funds, which is the buckets thing,
Correct.
should be fairly, it's not formally, is it fully on board? And this is what's in there according to the
This
accountant.
is what's in the Vadar system. The only thing that I saw that didn't align was under fund balance reserve for open space FY26. It had 10,000. And I thought at town meeting, it was 40 across the board. I thought it was 40, 40, and 40.
Yeah. So we'll have to revisit that.
I have to check in on that. So that might be more than what is showing in that bucket.
Okay, and as is accountant practice, you'll see these brackets around there. That doesn't mean that we're in the hole. That actually means how much we have available.
Yep. Then the CPA admin expense account, nothing got put in there yet. And I think that one on town meeting was 25.
Yeah,
Right.
so it should be
Meaning
22,500.
There's truly more funds than are reflected.
Yeah, and so this is just a matter of the new accounting folks coming up to speed on CPA financing, which is different than the typical municipal budget. And just keeps tabs on this, and we have all the records. It's just a matter of sitting down and working out the details. So
what I tried to do for y'all is that you can look under your buckets and you can see what was remaining in your FY25 account that should be rolled over into the FY26. So I think if we add them together, we should get a good ballpark of what the total amount would be. Like if you look at housing, FY 25 ended with 67,000, and then at town meeting, 40 was voted, so you probably can assume there's around 100,000.
Yeah, and so the way,
Yes.
and that's 100% accurate in what it should be. And so 107,000 for the housing. And so the way that works is we appropriate it at town meeting, the money comes in throughout the year. And so that's why you'll see, actual revenues on a month by month basis, or really it's quarterly by quarterly, mostly because of the fact that tax bills are due every quarter. So that being said, we have, roughly 107,000 for community housing, roughly 103,000 for historic resources, roughly 124, but it's probably should be 154,000 for open space. And then the undesignated fund balance should be somewhere around $800,000. So the projects that we are discussing tonight all fall well within that threshold of available funds. Obviously, the larger expenditures could be forthcoming at the annual town meeting, which would also need to be reflected on that. So that being said, that's where we stand with the finances overall. If we go to the individual projects, you'll see that she's highlighted in blue. The
The two
Gilman,
guys voted last time to close out.
Yeah.
Haven't been reflected
so
account.
those will go to zero, and those
Correct.
monies will get reverted back. Likewise, we have the Houghton Park project has been wrapped up. That was grant funded, and we're getting a
Reimbursement check.
reimbursement check from the state on that. So our,
I think we should hold off on a vote to revert the funds until we get the reimbursement check.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that will be,
So again, you'll probably have even more money in your buckets once those two move back up, get reverted and the reimbursement check comes in. There's just not a lot being reflected right now.
yeah, but they did close out, they did
Yep.
revert the Stonebridge monies and things like that. And so as Jessica noted, we have an indication that the Grange
Yes.
Hall lift project is complete. They did the final state inspection and there's no more monies to be expended on that. That had a remaining balance of,
301.78.
okay, so we could entertain a motion to close out that project and revert the funds
To undesignated.
to which was the source to the undesignated.
Correct.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
I,
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so there's another $300. And now the Drake project's not quite
No.
done yet. There's $700 in that. That's almost finished. So we've done a really good job of, closing out some projects.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions on any of the current projects or the finances?
Not a question, but Dwelly Farm got a new sign.
Yeah, so
I
if you
got it.
drive by,
Dwelly Farm got a new sign.
oh, good.
Yeah, the DPW department helped them install, and they installed it perpendicularly to what they had been.
parallel to the road.
Parallel to the road. Yeah.
Good.
So that errant driver that smashed the last one will have a harder job
Yeah.
next time.
Yeah.
But we'll be watching. Any other questions or comments on the projects? Hearing none, we'll move on. So on the agenda, we have listed the potential projects, and there are 4 of them tonight. What I'm suggesting we do is to kind of get a summary of each one of them, and then we come back and do voting afterwards, if that's amenable to everybody, acceptable. Basically, this is our only scheduled meeting prior to the closing of the warrant. If we had to have an emergency meeting for some reason, we could. But first off, is the Memorial Congregational Church in Baldwinville. That is a historic building. And this is a project for rehabilitation of the exterior. And we have Mr. Francis here and his colleague, whom I've already forgotten his name.
Joshua Cameron.
Joshua. Would you guys like to present a summary or?
I would. I know the site has already been visited by John and by Jessica, and First of all, I want to start, my name is Noel Francis. I live at 14 State Road in Baldwinville. I am the treasurer of Memorial Congregational Church. I also am chairperson of the advisory committee. And I just want right off the top to emphasize that I'm appearing solely for the church, not on behalf of advisory. And also, should this come up for discussion by the advisory committee, I would recuse myself in both the discussion and any vote that may occur. I think it's just very important to get that.
Okay, yes, no, that's fine. As we know, with the ethics is perception as much as conflict.
Exactly. A summary of the project is about probably about a year and a half ago, we noticed the interior walls along one of the foundations that was bubbling, and we came to the conclusion that there was moisture within the walls, and that repairing the exterior foundation wall by scraping off the paint and then repointing the brickwork and then sealing and repainting that foundation wall would solve that problem. The other issue is there's about a 15 by 15 foot area in the very front of the church. It's white paint and it's peeling. It's visible from the road. It needs to be repainted. And to do so would require the use of a boom lift as that paint area is about 35 feet above the street. This is the very front of the church that faces the common in Baldwinville. And then the third part of the request is that we have a wheelchair ramp. It was installed about between 25 and 30 years ago. It needs to be stained, and so the request is for the staining. We did have difficulty obtaining a contractor. As I said, we first noted these issues over a year and a half ago. We talked to several different contractors. Several of them would visit, but then we could not get quotes. Finally, Joshua, a few months back, he not only visited but provided a quote that we, the trustees, felt was very reasonable. We voted in favor of it. Essentially, the quote is for that work is $12,900, and then because we will not be able to commence work until the following spring, there's a 10% contingency built into that cost. There's also an additional cost of a little over $1,000 for a police detail. The Elm Street right in front of the church is really a dangerous area. You really need a police officer, as the boom lift would have to be on the street itself. And there's a need of an officer. So we within our request is we think that would take 2 days and would be 16 hours at the amount stated for the police detail in the quote, which I believe is $65 per hour. We also built in a contingency of around $150 for a building permit. There may have to be a few support wood placed underneath the existing wheelchair ramp, which would require a building permit. The other work does not require a building permit, but that piece would. And if there is, we built an amount of money into our request for that. So the total of the request is $15,494.
Very good. Thank you for that summary. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you build in some money for the required sign? If you receive the money from the town through this program, you have to post a sign saying where the money came from. So does the budget include money for a sign?
It does not specifically include money, for the sign. That is something that I think that the church itself would fund
Okay.
from the sign.
Okay, so the,
We make a nice sign in the form of a plaque, I understand that's a requirement, so.
yeah, and you'll have some of, you can put it in, it needs to be in a public location, but it doesn't need to be obscuring, church signs.
Yeah, it's not gonna be a billboard, but I am aware of the requirement.
Okay.
Yeah, and oftentimes we suggest even a higher contingency because you never know the processes, especially of course in municipal projects, you have to go out to bid as opposed to having a contractor with a firm price. You as a separate entity don't have to follow those procurement requirements of the bidding. You just need to do due diligence and do outreach that's appropriate. The billing, if the project were to go forward, is the reimbursement from the town to the grantee. The grantee will pay the vendor and then be reimbursed by the town. And
I have discussed the contingency with Mr. Cameron and, we felt that, 10% would be an adequate, or more than adequate figure.
very good. Anybody else have any questions or comments?
I just have one question about the handicap ramp. I know the CPA funds can be used for the historical, front of the building and the look of it, but would that be covered under CPA funds? The accessibility?
So certainly in any public building, accessibility is an eligible expense. There is always questions when dealing with churches that could lead to some kind of a wrench in the works in so much that providing access to the interior of the building for the purposes of, religious services, that gets into that gray area. There may be some comment from the attorneys on that. I don't know. I mean, so they're not asking to rebuild it per se, as much as to recondition it.
We're not rebuilding it except where there may be, a few rotten boards that would be replaced. But otherwise it's basically to stain, the ramp. And also, we included it in the request because we felt, from the church point of view that it was exterior and it would improve the exterior portion. We do have needs for the interior of the building and the roof. We did not request anything repairs to the roof because, my understanding and conversations with John and also other people is that, covering the sanctuary area, that gets into a real gray area as far as, church and state. So we really consciously try to avoid, something that could be interpreted as enhancing the religious aspects of the church.
Right, and that's why I asked that question.
Yeah, and the other thing that we need to be clear on is that because of the deferred maintenance that has led to, building challenges, this is not something that would be considered general maintenance, in my opinion, because it's protecting and saving the building from neglect. Because that's another, we can't do funding for maintenance, but we can do for rehabilitation. And you're rehabilitating the front part of the building to protect the building in perpetuity. So that's another issue that we're aware of. We went there, we looked and we saw that it's something that's needs to be done every couple hundred years or as opposed to annual maintenance or something like that. So I personally had no problem with that component. Any other questions or comments?
Do we have to get that evaluated legally or?
Everything we do goes to the attorneys anyway. And if they have an issue, they will let us
Okay,
know.
So that will be.
Yeah.
Oh,
And they do because of there was a Supreme Judicial Court that is the only guidance that attorneys have as to church and state for CPA.
okay.
I know it's not a church, but I wanted to add that, we did fund a project for the Grange Hall for a lift, and that's like an accessibility in the building.
Right, but it's the church thing. Yeah, because certainly they do encourage, and that is explicitly stated
Yeah.
in the law, that an ADA compliance of a historic structure is an acceptable cost. It's more the religious nature and,
It's just the religious facilities usually are more controversial.
Yeah, there may need to be some interpretation. When you look at the scope of this project, which is small, and the scope of the request for that component, which is even smaller,
Right.
I don't have a problem with it, but you know, we do have to rely on their judgment from the attorneys and, you know, you know,
Yeah, I just, to address that issue, the building is approximately 143 years old. And it's, you look at pictures down the hallway, the church is in pictures from 1900. And I think the historic value of the building and preserving the building as an historic building and really a key feature of the village of Baldwinville would really outweigh, in my opinion, would outweigh any concerns that the Attorney General or whoever reviews this may have.
Right, and CPA funds can be used for that, and we know that. I'm trying to make sure we dot all our i's and cross all our t's to make sure what you're asking for can be covered under the funds.
It's located right in the center of town as well. So
Right.
yeah, we know it's in the historic district. It's a historic building, you know, it meets all the criteria for historic. The only extra discussion is related to the religious nature of the building. And we do have experience at First Church of Templeton, where we were told specifically we couldn't fund the roof because that supported the congregation meeting, but the exterior has an iconic structure for Templeton, just as Baldwin Memorial Church is for Baldwinville. The attorneys had no issue with that. So it's good that we get it out there to see if there is some kind of an issue. We could, but we'll see. I don't know. I don't see it being but I'm not a lawyer, so.
will we be able to get that done for the fall town meeting?
Oh, yeah, they will review everything beforehand, as to whether, and if we needed to amend an article, we have to look into the challenges of that. We may even. We'll have to consult them before, if we have to call a special meeting of this committee prior to the closing of the warrant, just to address those issues, we will. Like I say, I don't know, we'll have to ask her.
Do that. If you choose to fund the project and a article is created, it would essentially say, similarly to what other articles have said in the past, which would be the historic rehabilitation of blah, 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 blah. If there's a certain aspect under it that wouldn't be covered, then the applicant just wouldn't be allowed to do that aspect of it. And any remaining balances would be returned to the CPA when the project's done.
That's a good point. Is the language of the article really dictates what's being approved. And so if this is approved to go forward and it gets put on the warrant, it'll be for the historic rehabilitation to address the exterior of the building and all components, provided it meets all legal requirements of the CPA. And if they come up and say, okay, $300 is out, then $300 is out, we'll pass the hat, I'll chip in. Or whatever. That's a good point. Thank you very much. So that's probably enough to talk about on that, unless there's something else or you'd like to say, or anybody else would like to ask. So we're just gonna go through all the projects and then we'll vote. Okay.
Thank you for listening to us and also for your assistance and Jessica's assistance. Very much appreciated.
Very welcome.
Very good. Okay, so the next item we have is the Grange Hall kitchen renovation, which is the blue one here. And as anybody who follows this committee knows, we have been supporting the historic rehabilitation of the Grange Hall for probably 15 years or so, or whenever the first one
Yeah,
was.
ages.
I mean, the town accepted the CPA in 2007, so 2008 was the first year, and they probably had a project in 2009. They've completed, they've moved forward, they've rehabilitated the upstairs, they put ADA compliant bathrooms, ADA compliant ramp, ADA compliant lift, all about public access to both the first and the second floor. Now they're looking to rehabilitate the kitchen so that it would be made available for community functions and whatnot, just as it had been historically. They have some additional funds for additional work related to, access through driveway and exterior stuff that they're not seeking additional funds for, but they are seeking $20,000 for work on the kitchen area as noted in the project.
So Says install plumbing for kitchen sinks and restore the floor and front stairway by sanding and refinishing. It looks like first story floors are included in that.
Yeah, so as you enter the building from the street, you come right in there and the bathrooms are right there. And then off to the left, there was a place where they used to have the pancake breakfast. And then there was the kitchen behind it, which has all this old cast iron antique stuff. And
Yep.
they're just looking to get the whole interior ready so that they can renovate further.
Yep.
So any questions or comments on that?
The kitchen's going to be useful now.
Well, they do mention in here that there will be like community function hall to be utilized by any nonprofit organization such as the Templeton's Lions Clubs and Boy Scouts, to name a few. The Historical Society will host events throughout the year, including music, small plays, lectures, historic presentations, cabin fever, collectors, show meetings, and so much more. This will be available to Templeton residents. And as with any, funding that goes to a nonprofit that is not the town, we have to evidence the public availability, and they've always had in there, because what is the public benefit to that, whether it's the historic backdrop of a church, or it's in this case, free access to events there for town residents. So when they do start doing plays upstairs, now they can cook coffee downstairs and whatever.
Traditionally, they had dinners.
I don't know how much use this building is going to get.
Certainly get a lot more than it does now. So the parking issue, they are looking to improve access. We know we've always gone back and forth. There is some vacant land nearby, but that still remains tied up, but that's not the issue here. The issue here is this is the project and we will be voting on it later. Do you have any other?
Do we have a feel for whether this is it or, I mean, over the years, it's been sort of a dribble and a drab. And I know, we probably would never have approved the whole massive thing at once. And it looks like they've gotten a lot of funding from a lot of different sources. So I'm just trying to get a feel for, are we looking at another one next year, or do you have any feel for that?
Well, frankly, it has been a long process, and they have rely on a lot of volunteers, and they have got external funding. They have really grown as an organization. They have been more responsive as they kind of figure out the process. I would say never because we haven't seen it yet.
It's
This
almost,
would be the last interior space that needs to be completed, other than. the
That's right.
parking
the
That
process,
they have to address, sorry.
the process for rehabbing this building has been so long that it's almost time to start over again with the roof and siding and such. So,
Dancing in there.
Well, I hope they got more than that.
That was
Hey,
easier.
God bless them. They're working hard and they're doing a good job. So, but I don't know what will be next. Any other questions or comments on that?
Just for the public, that request is for 20,000.
Okay, yeah, $20,000. Okay, so the next item is for the Boynton Library Historic Rehabilitation Project. I can speak to that, unless you wanted to. I am, as is Maria Barnes, we're not here. I am a trustee of the library, so I've been involved with this project. The town approved $70,000 of CPA funds several years ago for the rehabilitation of the historic part of the Boynton Public Library. The library also received a bequest from the Nordfors family for the same purposes. The $70,000 that was approved of town money, of that $18,000 has been committed, not all has been fully spent, to a contract with an architectural firm who has done the design, layout, met regularly with the trustees about the rehabilitation project, which is in the interior of the building, which includes addressing the antiquated, knob and tube wiring, improving the HVAC, and improving the ADA compliance of both the bathrooms and the flow through the stacks, which involves reorienting the stacks, and was also included to build wall shelving as opposed to all of the stacks that are just, out there. Now the shelving will be all the way around the perimeter. So the process has gone forward. Project proposal went out. The low bidder, bid $265,000 for the project. That did not include the alternative bid. The alternative bid was specifically to the shelving. So they quoted approximately $120,000 for that component. So if you added those two things together, you would get $385,000. The other bid was higher than that when you add those two together, and also the base quote was higher. And so, like I said, there's the 70,000 that had been voted, 18 has been committed, so that's 52,000 of CPA funds available. And then there's approximately $260,000 from the Nordford's bequest. So that brings up to about $312,000. There is also a cost associated with moving the books and storing them for the process that had not been included in that bid, and that was separately quoted. And we've gotten 3 quotes back from that. They range in depth and detail, but are essentially $15,000 figure is kind of, we did an evaluation of what does it all include, what kind of a storage, climate control, what for moving, how long of a duration. So that has not been finalized. Need to re-meet with the book movers once there is a determination that the project's going forward and award that. So that's an additional $15,000 cost to this project. There's also been discussion about some additional heating work that would need to be done, and then which was estimated around $10,000, and the a contingency for the project as well for the unfound things that will crop up. One of the challenges is with the shelving, the intent is that Monty Tack will be able to do the work for us. They have been, we've discussed it with them. They basically do it for the cost of the materials. They would make the shelving at their shop at Monty Tack, and then they would do the installation work in coordination with the general contractor of the project. We've gotten some tacit approval and discussion of that, but nothing firm as far as getting it on the schedule. So we're kind of floating on what that cost will be. We're hoping that will happen. And, we saw what the material costs were for some of these things, and we know it will be a lot less money than what these contractors have bid. But we don't know that with certainty because the school year just started and they're still working on their projects, et cetera, for the year. Our director, Mrs. Prime, has met with them a couple of times. John Thomas, the other trustee, met with them as well to try to, look at the scope of the work, et cetera. But that's why when you look at the figures that we've discussed, it was decided to request an additional $60,000 from the town for this project to cover unforeseen costs and to ensure that this project can go forward this fiscal year. The hope originally was to do it around Thanksgiving. Who knows when it will actually happen. It'll be like a month shutdown to do the whole project. So as I mentioned, we do have approximately $312,000, and I say approximately because the exact figures of that of what's left in the bequest that's the number I was given. So $312,000. We've got these other costs in this unknown shelving issue, and so then it was decided we should, just to be certain, ask for 60,000 additional monies with the hope that we don't spend it all. But we also have had experience here on this committee of not having enough money for a project and then having to go back to town meeting, and so that's why that figure has come to 60,000. So any questions or comments on that?
You feel comfortable with a low bidder as far as quality of?
So the consulting firm, the consulting engineer, FSB, has done work with them, and they have had discussions related to what was going on. They are doing a project in town at the senior center, They're doing the kitchen project, which is, from all reports, is going well.
And do we need somebody to oversee the project?
So that is part of the obligation. So that contract that we have with the engineers includes them coordinating with the general contractor for the project itself. That's why we committed to the 18,000. We've spent about 9 or 10. And that is included in their fee, is to, help shepherd it through.
If you look on the project details at the top, it said started with 70 and you're at 61.
Yeah, so we've spent 9, we expect to spend another 9. Okay, any other questions or comments on the library?
Could you just clarify for the public, is this a nonprofit going for this, or is this a town project?
This is a town project. This is the Boynton Library, public library.
So is it, the Board of Trustees going for it, or is it Jackie? Because I see both names on the thing.
Well, it's being submitted on behalf of the Boynton trustees, as to whether the trustees of the library are, the library trustees are dependent as to what their function is within the community, is dependent upon the articles of incorporation of the library. And as has been the case, the budget for the library is primarily controlled, is certainly the operating budget, by the select board. So we would propose that this would be the trustees that would be working on the project. And of course, we would have to coordinate with the select board.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah. Okay, so that's that. Then unless that's that, okay. The final project to discuss tonight is for the garden expansion at the senior center.
That's the green one.
That is the green one, which is appropriate.
And I shall speak to that. This application is actually being submitted by the Templeton Agricultural Commission. It was started with a sort of a grassroots effort to want to have more of a community type project. The beds currently at the senior center, a couple of them are leaking dirt right now because they're a little bit rotten. So this proposal is to expand with 10 more beds. They will be metal. And we're looking at, pretty much everything. The beds, the soil, the trellis, the composter, some additional watering equipment, a shed to be able to store tools. We tried to pretty much think of everything, some landscape fabric to keep the weeds from growing in between the beds. And then all of the labor for this project is going to be done by volunteers and by a group that's going to be formed. They won't be a nonprofit group. They will be, just a citizens group that will be formed to be working on the beds, to be kind of laying out sort of some structure on, who uses it and so forth. This will be in direct use by the town and also with the senior center. I'm going to attend a meeting on Monday just to make sure they understand that we want to help them, they can help us, that this really will be a intergenerational joint project. When I looked at the state website, the community garden is covered under recreation. It's an allowable use. And what else would you like to know? That's pretty much it. We feel fairly confident that we can do all that we're hoping for just under $6,000. I submitted a grant proposal today to the Community Foundation for Central Mass. That is a very, very competitive grant, not a lot of money. So should we be awarded that, we would find that out at the end of October. That would be kind of a nice buffer. We would use that money, and then any cost overruns could come from the town if we were voted, and then we would turn any remaining money back.
Very good. Obviously, it's important to have community gardens. We will need to be sure that that whoever controls the property, which ultimately is the select board, has permission to do so.
Yeah.
and a letter of support from the senior center would certainly be helpful.
Yeah, I'm hoping to procure that on Monday.
Any other questions or comments for Carrie? And so the project itself, and we'll go through this when we go through the voting, we have to identify who is the responsible party. In this case, you're saying it would be Ag Committee?
Yes, they voted on Monday at our meeting to give me authority to sign for the grant, both for this grant and for the Community Foundation grant.
And for the public, the amount you're requesting is,
$5,880.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, so we have these four projects in front of us, so we're just going to cycle back. And as I mentioned earlier, the funding availability it will not be there's more money here than there is being requested. The process is if the Community Preservation Committee votes a project to go forward, that dollar figure that's associated with it cannot be changed on the floor. It's either an up or down vote on the floor, provided the select board who control the warrant put it on the warrant, which has always been the case. And so yeah, that's the way the law reads. You know, they make the CPC responsible for moving it forward, and then it's ultimately the townspeople that decide, but you can't do motions on the floor to amend or change, or why don't you buy this or that, which, you know, simplifies the thing. So the first project to discuss is the Memorial Congregational Church, $15,494.
nice, but something real quick. So I was just writing down, so you've got 3 historic preservations and 1 recreation. Is that right?
Yes.
Historic preservation, historic preservation, historic preservation. And
Yeah, so
then-
as we speak through these articles, we'll
Recreation.
need to identify which buckets they would be coming from. And I believe that just because of the fact, we generally go to every year we allocate a minimum of 10% to each of the 3 categories: community housing, historic preservation, and open space, which it also covers recreation. And then the balance, 65%, goes into an unbudgeted reserve for any of those uses plus recreation, and then 5% for the administrative budget. So if you have a lot of historic projects, you know, you can fund them all. You have to go into the unbudgeted reserve. I would advocate for, and we'll go through on each one, that, for example, certainly the Congregational Church and the Grange Hall should be allocated from the historic fund. The $60,000 project, if we decide to move forward on that for the library, we show roughly 103,000. So we're getting kind of close on that. And we've done it in the past where we would split. We'd say 30,000 from historic and 30,000 from that. That makes it a little more difficult for the accounting. So when we get to this one, depending on what happens with the first 2, I might advocate that one come from the unbudgeted reserve, just to simplify it. Does that answer your questions?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so the first time, now, one thing I might suggest too is that, like, for the Memorial Congregational Church, we should throw the extra $6 in just to make it a rounder figure, 15,500.
And maybe the garden.
And the garden, maybe round that off to 5,900, just because it's easier accounting, and if you don't spend it, we'll take it back. But would you have a problem with that? Okay. So, I mean, and that's why I did bring up the contingency thing. This is the time where if we were to add contingent funds to a project, it's now or never. So that being said, the way we're discussing it now, unless the committee feels otherwise and wants to change, is that we would be requesting $15,500 from the historic community historic fund to be awarded to the Memorial Congregational Church for the exterior rehabilitation as described in the project.
I'll make a motion that we accept this project.
I second it.
Okay, so the 15,500.
No, you said 16.
Oh, 15, fine.
Oh, 50, okay.
15,500.
And that's, yeah.
Historic resources.
Okay, so we'll run down, do a vote. So motion made and seconded, $15,500 from the Historic Resources CPA Fund for the Ballinville Congregational Church. Okay, all those in favor, will do a polling. Dennis?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
I'll vote yes.
Yes.
George? Yes. Joanne? Yes.
Yes.
Carrie? Yes. Okay, we will send that forward to the Board of Selectmen. Yep, thank you very much. Okay, the next item is the Grange Hall kitchen renovation. That is for $20,000. That too would be from the Historic Resources, and it would be for the Narragansett Historical Society to expend. Any discussion on that? Any motion to be made?
Make a motion that we approve $20,000 for the Grange project.
Okay, motion's been made to put this project forward to the select board for $20,000. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Discussion.
I'd like to see more explanation about the use of the kitchen. Personally.
Yeah, we just have what's in the application, which mentioned the, having meals and things like that, with the Boy Scouts
Oh, yeah.
Alliance.
That's what they have here, but it seems like a lot of money just for a kitchen that we probably won't be using.
I actually thought it was a small amount of money
Yeah.
for a kitchen renovation. That they're gonna need additional money. That seems like low money for a kitchen.
Yes.
I think you're right that they're gonna have to address the parking. That's still support moving forward with this step. And if
To
they
be used,
can't-
it'll have to be inspected and,
Yeah, compliant with Board of Health and et cetera.
Put a parking lot up in the common. People can walk down.
Yeah, we could spare some more comments.
Okay, any other discussion on the motion at hand? Okay, we are, in for a penny, in for a pound. We hope we're getting near the end. They've done a wonderful job over there. So, I think it's, a next natural step. They have been raising more money. We hope they'll continue to raise money, going forward. That being said, any other discussion? We'll go right to a vote. Dennis,
I'm gonna abstain.
abstain. George is a yes. I'm a yes. George, yes. Joanne,
Yes.
Carrie.
yes.
Okay, so it does pass. Thank you very much. And as I noted earlier in the discussion, that would be coming from the unbudgeted reserve.
No, you.
Oh, wait, no, I'm getting ahead of myself.
It's historic. I got it down.
Okay,
Keep going.
as I did say, back the tape up. Next item, Boynton Library Historic Rehabilitation Project, $60,000 that had already moved on to. This is the one that I said if we do pass, it should come from the unbudgeted reserve.
You have enough in historic, but it's probably safer considering the financial report is as disjointed as it is.
Yeah, and also remember there could be, additional May project.
Absolutely. Yep.
So discussion or a motion on this article?
Well, I think it's a good deal. It looks like you're getting, a lot of money and a lot of in-kind, for a project for a building that I think is very important to the town of Templeton. So, I think that, just 60,000 in the whole scheme of this entire project feels like a really good deal.
Make a motion that we would accept this.
Okay, a motion's been made to accept the proposal for the Boynton Library Historic Rehabilitation Project of $60,000 from the unbudgeted reserve to be under the jurisdiction of the Board of Trustees in conjunction with the Select Board. And do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I'm sorry. Any discussion on that? Hearing none. Dennis?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. George?
Yes.
Joanne? Yes. And
Yes.
Carrie? Yes. Okay, unanimous. Thank you. The last item is for the Gardner. Gardner. Bid.
That sounds sweet.
Garden expansion at the senior center. Now they have requested $5,880. You know, in the nature of round numbers, I did suggest that maybe we could go up to 5,900.
Yep.
Okay,
Make a motion to accept.
motion been made, and that would be under the jurisdiction of the Ag Committee from the open space budget.
Also,
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, Dennis?
yes.
George?
Yes.
I vote yes. George?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
Can I vote or do I have?
Yeah,
to
you can vote.
abstain?
You have no,
Yes.
yeah.
That'd be crazy if I said no, wouldn't it?
Maybe I want to say something, I guess. Okay, so that addresses all of these articles will be drafted and submitted to the select board for consideration for the fall special town meeting. Very good, thank you. Moving on then. The next item on the agenda is for the chair or members to make any comments. I have no comments. Does anybody want to?
I just want to bring up one thing. Several months ago, it was mentioned something about reactivating the open space committee. I don't know, I haven't heard anything about that since then. I don't know if anything's happened with that or not.
Yeah, we do. We have had some discussions about that. They disbanded it because there was not enough members. I think the bylaw said you needed to have 5 and we could only get 3. All 3 of them are here tonight.
Well,
And we've also had some discussion with the MRPC about what could be done to reinvigorate our open space and recreation plan, you know, seeking funding and things like that. We had talked about trying to revisit this, and maybe we should make it a focus since, you know, tonight, obviously, we had to deal with the warrant, but why don't we put it as an agenda item for discussion at our meeting? Because an open space committee, while not, you know, that's separate from this, it would help us if the town were to go for open space projects, they would be eligible for funding, that the CPA monies could serve as the match.
my recollection was that the open space committee was what actually generated this committee, thanks to yourself and,
Well, thanks to you, Dennis, you had the prod.
oh. Anyways, and then we've kind of assumed much of the work that was done by the open space committee, so including creating the second plan or renewing it, so.
Yeah, it's probably a very prudent idea to put it on the agenda for next month. That way
Yeah,
there'll
I
be a
think
focus on it.
Yeah, okay, and then we could also reach out to conservation to talk about that as well.
And right at Mr. Andrews. And Joanne and me.
Sure.
Okay, thank you for bringing that up, Dennis. We will certainly put it on the agenda and we'll try to pull some information to share to the committee beforehand.
Got it.
Okay, any other comments or discussion? Yes.
And there's only one other comment, and I already told Jess, there is not a, do not bring dogs in the cemetery in the one down Baptist Common. I have spoken to Bob about it. And hopefully they're gonna put the sign up, because,
Did they have a sign?
huh?
Did they have a sign or did they need?
They're gonna make one up, you know, one of those. There's one at one end of the cemetery that's been there for years. Nobody's coming in that, and I said, well, take that one and put it on. But the easiest thing to do, because I was looking out my rear window the other day and I had a dog walking in my backyard. Which the cemetery is right in front, behind my house. So I went out and they were just coming in the new entrance and the dog was loose and it shouldn't have been.
That's a good point, you know, that is something that we should probably.
I've talked to Bob about it, so hopefully he'll have the sign soon.
Okay, and if it comes out to be a budgetary issue, because that was a CPA project, it is conceivable that we could fund, at our next meeting, a sign, but hopefully Bob will do it.
Yeah.
But you're right, if dogs are not allowed in cemeteries, then we need to have a sign to let the public know.
No, it's one of the town rules.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Any other comments? Okay, the next meeting is scheduled for October 9th, 7 PM, same place.
Make a motion and we adjourn?
I second it.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?